Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mrs. Riska. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Mrs. Sarowski,
Here.
Mrs. Koski,
Present.
Mr. Radke,
Here.
Mrs. Schmidt,
Present.
Mr. Yanez,
Here.
Mrs. Argo.
Present.
Thank you, Council. We need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to remind everyone that our offices will be closed on Friday, December 13th for an in-service training day, so please take note of that. And that includes City Hall, Parks and Recreation Center, Senior Center, the 41A District Court, and the Nature Center. Of course, this will have no impact on our refuse schedule. And also, I'm sure you probably all know this by now, but for those who may have forgotten, Sterling Christmas is this Saturday, December 7th. Starts at 5:45 p.m., goes to 8:30 p.m. at Dodge Park. As you can see, the park looks great. The ice rink is open. And at Sterling Christmas, we'll have all the usual festivities, which are always exciting, including the tree lighting, music, caroling, visit with Santa, horse-drawn wagon rides, carousel, ice skating, and more. So if you're attending, we encourage you to bring canned goods, which we donate to nearby shelters. So that would be much appreciated. We look forward to seeing you on Saturday. And I'm very pleased to announce that Dodge Park, speaking of Dodge Park, has been selected as a 2020 Park Design Award winner by the Michigan Recreation and Park Association, also known as MParks. The formal award presentation will take place during the 2020 MParks Conference and Trade Show in January at the Suburban Collection Showplace of Novi. And I'm sure it comes as no surprise to all of you who have been through Dodge Park over the last year or so to say the improvements are phenomenal is probably an understatement. The utilization of the park has skyrocketed, and it's really great to see all the activity now in the winter months with the ice rink. So look forward to more publicity on that award. And I hate to end my report on a bad note, but I must remind everyone that you only have 2 weeks now to collect your leaves off your yards or to have them mulched, and that's pursuant to city ordinance. The ordinance has been in place for many years, but there's been an increased need for enforcement for safety on sidewalks, and we can't have leaves clogging drains and so on. So it creates a safety concern, especially when drains are clogged and streets freeze over. So please be reminded that you need to get your leaves collected this week. We do have the final week of collection next week. We are enforcing this. The good news is the vast majority of residents do comply and get their yards cleaned up. But for those who don't, we'll be providing 24-hour notices this week, and then our contractor will come in and do the work. So we strongly encourage you to get it done this week. I know it's not a desirable task. For those of you who might have some sort of mobility limitation or hardship, please contact us. We have a Shine program and volunteers that might be able to help you out over the next couple of weeks. And likewise, just a reminder that there is an on-demand service called Lawn Guru that will come and collect your leaves for you, of course at a charge, but less expensive than what the city would charge. And you can download their app from our website or from the online store. And again, that's called Lawn Guru. And Mayor, that concludes my report this evening.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. The next item on our agenda is a presentation, and this is to receive the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019. We have a presentation from our Finance and Budget Director and from our auditors at Plant Moran. We'll start with our Finance and Budget Director, Jennifer Varney. Ms. Varney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Vanderpool, Mr. Koszewski, Mr. Mayor, and members of council. I'm very happy to be here tonight to present the results of the 2019 financial audit. Each year, independent auditors review our financial statements and our accounting procedures. The audit is a very time-consuming and detailed process and involves the cooperation of many employees throughout the organization. And I would like to thank everyone who was involved, especially Nick Mackey and the entire finance team, who have once again done an excellent job. We have prepared a short presentation to review the audit findings. The net position of the city, which represents our total assets minus our total liabilities, has increased by over $22 million from the prior year. Most of this increase is in the government activities and is due to the large investments the city has been making into infrastructure, primarily roads and parks and recreation facilities. And now to summarize the general fund results. General fund revenues totaled $111.7 million and expenditures were $109.5 million. This means we were able to add $2.2 million to general fund reserves. This brings our total general fund balance to $26.9 million, or 24.6% of expenditures. And in 2020, we are projected to add an additional million to reserves, bringing our total reserves to 26.5% of expenditures. In total, general fund revenues were within 0.2% of budgeted targets and increased about $11.3 million over the prior year. The increase over the prior year was due to a $6.5 million increase in property taxes, and this was primarily due to the one-time $1 million increase that was dedicated to road improvements, plus an inflationary increase of 2.4%. We had a full year of transport revenue, which increased revenue by $1.7 million. Higher interest rates increased investment income by $1.2 million, and increases to the personal property tax reimbursement and revenue sharing made up the remainder. Total expenditures were 0.8% lower than budgeted, and every city department came in under budget. Expenditures increased by $16.6 million from the prior year, and this increase included a $9 million increased investment in road construction, a $2 million increase to total pension contributions, and this included a $1 million increase to the police and fire system that was over the required amount. A $1.4 million increase in debt service due to the $20 million facilities improvement bond that was issued in the spring of 2018, and a $2.4 million increase in personnel costs due to contractual wage adjustments and step increases. Now let's look at some of the activity in our other major funds. First, the major and local roads funds. As you can see from this chart, revenue for major and local roads totaled over $28 million in 2019. Revenue from the state of Michigan, known as Act 51 revenue, totaled $11.8 million, and this was an increase of about $740,000 over the prior year. The city also received a one-time allocation of $1.4 million from the state general fund, which is included in other state grants. The Safe Streets millage provided $3.3 million for neighborhood road improvements, and this is up about $90,000 from the prior year. The general fund provided an additional $10.5 million to the major and local road funds this year. As you would expect, investment in major roads increased significantly over the prior year, with actual expenditures, including bonded funds, totaling over $17.2 million for 2019, and an additional $20 million is included in the current year's budget. This year's neighborhood road projects totaled $5.3 million, and 2020 will see another $6.6 million of investment. And thanks to the renewal of the Safe Streets millage, over 250 additional neighborhood streets will see improvements over the next 10 years. Investment in parks and recreation, funded through the proceeds of the Recreating Recreation millage, continued with over $15 million invested in 2019. Highlights include the opening of the ice rink in December of last year, the installation of a new walkway at Rotary Park, the installation of accessible launches along the Clinton River, the groundbreaking on the dog park at Delia Park, and of course, the continuation of construction for the new community center, which is slated to open in just a few months. Investment into replacement vehicles and equipment continued, as well as investment into new technologies. Actual capital expenditures totaled $6.6 million in 2019, and some highlights include replacement radios for police and fire, a grant-funded video conferencing system for the fire department, the replacement of the 20-year-old phone system throughout all city buildings, and the purchase of a new fire pumper, 2 ambulances, 10 new police vehicles, and a new snowplow. The 2020 budget will see continued investment in equipment and facilities, including exciting renovations at City Hall, the police department, the library, and the court, and of course, the construction of a new DPW building. And finally, the Water and Sewer Fund. The Water and Sewer Fund experienced a small operational loss of just over $100,000 in the current fiscal year, and this was primarily due to lower usage. Usage was 4.6 lower than estimated for the budget and nearly 7% lower than the 10-year average. As you can see from the chart, we have worked to minimize losses in the Water and Sewer Fund in the past 3 years after experiencing significant losses during the downturn. The current year budget is projected to begin replenishing reserves, which is important for future infrastructure improvements. And now an update on our city retirement funds. The city has continued to prioritize funding of its 3 retirement plans. The retiree medical plan has increased its funding level 1.9% from last year to 57% funded. The city remains committed to improve the funding level of this plan, which has increased from 9% in 2008. The funding level of the general employees pension system decreased to 76% funded, and this was primarily due to the actual rate of return of 5.45% compared to the assumed rate of 7.5%. And as a reminder, the retiree medical plan and general employees pension plan are both closed to new hires. The funding level of the police and fire plan decreased to 58.5%, primarily due to a reduction in the assumed rate of return from 7.75 to 7.5 and unfavorable actuarial experience. The city is committed to improving the health of this plan, and in fiscal 2019 contributed $1 million over and above the required contribution. And this is the only plan that is still open to new hires. The bottom line is the audit results show that the city budgeting and long-term financial planning is on target. We are continuing to add to general fund reserves, ensuring adequate resources will be available in the event of an economic downturn. We are continuing to invest in roads and community infrastructure. And all of this is accomplished while still maintaining the lowest taxes paid per resident when compared to the 10 largest Michigan cities by population. And we continue to have one of the lowest millage rates in Macomb County, with the average homeowner paying $102 per month for all city services. And that concludes my overview. And now I would like to introduce Joe Kowalski, partner from Plant Moran, our independent auditors. They have spent the past several months reviewing our financial records and operations and have issued an unmodified opinion on the audited financial report, which is the highest rating possible. And then Nick Mackey, our city controller, will present the city council with the GFOA financial awards received for both our city budget and financial reports. Thank you.
Mr. Kowalski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Varney, for such a thorough summary. And thank you to this body for having us here today to present the results of the audit. Very happy to do so. I'm going to start by echoing some of the comments that Ms. Varney made, specifically about thanking the administration for their cooperation, and especially the Office of the Finance Director and Nick Mackey and his team. We spend over 1,000 hours conducting the audit. We're here for a week of planning in the summer and then 6 weeks in the fall. And as a former finance director, I've always tried to tell my teams it's much harder to be audited than it is to audit. And that's because it's a major disruption to your everyday process. So we truly do appreciate the cooperation, and it was a smooth audit, so thank you for that. The results in the letter that are in your packet is the culmination of the letter that we sent you on July 11th, which was laying out the plan for the audit. We did not need to deviate from that plan. We were able to complete the audit in accordance with the plan that was laid out at that time. So I have with me today Steve Bondar, who is manager on the audit. He really is the day-to-day oversight of the team and is the engine that makes it work. And then Ramzi Abdallah as well, who provides a lot of oversight and leadership to the team. So I'm going to ask Steve to make a couple of comments about the overall results of the audit.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks to City Council for having us here today. As Joe mentioned, my name is Steve Bondar. I'm the manager on the audit engagement. I'd also personally like to extend my thanks to Jennifer, Nick, and the rest of the team here at Sterling Heights for all the hard work during the audit process. The annual audit, as Joe mentioned, is quite an undertaking, and their assistance and commitment to the process is very much appreciated. Included in your council packet are 2 deliverables that are generated as part of the audit. The first item I'd like to briefly discuss is our audit opinion. This can be found within the city's CAFR on page 2 of the financial statement section. As we have historically, we issued an unmodified opinion on the city's CAFR. This is better known as a clean opinion, and this is the highest level of assurance that you can get that your financial statements are materially accurate. And then one item we'd like to point out with respect to the opinion is that while we don't opine on the effectiveness of the city's internal controls, if we were to observe anything that we would consider to be a deficiency, we'd communicate that to you. This brings me to our second deliverable, which is our end of audit letter. This mostly discusses standard required audit communication that deals with the scope and conduct of our audit. This is the deliverable where we'd inform you if we had any sort of internal control matter or other findings that we identified as part of the audit. And we're happy to report that we have no such findings this year as part of the audit. And that's really a credit to Jennifer and Nick's group. Obviously, we spend a lot of time looking through the city's financial records and other data, and it really is an impressive and a thing to be proud of to have no findings come out of an audit that's as rigorous as this is. And that's all we had with respect to our presentation, and with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions that any members of the council may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Bondar. Is there anyone in the council that has any questions? No, nothing? Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate the work that you guys do for, several months, and we always appreciate the work that you guys do on behalf of the city. A lot of times, residents will ask things like, well, how do we know what's going on with the finances in this city? How do we know that you're spending the money the way you say that you're spending the money? And I tell them every year there's this long document with all of the answers in there, and if you're really curious, you can thumb through 150 so pages, and you can see it all laid out to you. And it is something that we are incredibly proud of here in the city, that we've got great people in our finance department and in our administration who take this job very seriously. It's something that we shouldn't take for granted, because a lot of other cities don't have the sort of professionals that we have. So I think it's something that every resident should take comfort in, knowing that our tax dollars are well spent, and they're not, and they're reported accurately as well. So thank you very much for your presentation tonight. And Mr. Mackey, I'll invite you up.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council, Mr. Vanderpool. I'm honored to be here tonight with Ms. Varney and Plant Moran to highlight our city's financial accomplishments for this past fiscal year, and to again thank you for your continued support of the finance and budget departments. Sterling Heights has a long history of excellence in financial reporting and budgeting, which is demonstrated by the 30 and 31 years that we've received the GFOA Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, as well as the Distinguished Budget Award. These awards represent the city's commitment to accurate, functional, and transparent financial reporting and budgeting, and they are the tangible proof of our financial staff's dedication, technical expertise, and work ethic. Out of more than 1,700 governments in the state, only around 100 achieve this for their CAFR, and less than 50 for their budget. So it is a very exclusive club. We have, once again, achieved these prestigious awards, and it's my privilege to present them to you.
Oh.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you again, Mr. Mackey, and we accept these awards, but really the credit goes to you, Mrs. Varney, Mr. Mackey, and your team, and Janice, and everybody who works on this. We really are in great hands, and so we appreciate all the work that you do. I guess I'll open it up one more time. Anybody on council have anything to say? If not, well, thank you very much. I don't think we have any item to,
We have a suggestion.
do we? Thank you. Mrs. Sarowski, do you want to make the,
Sure. Resolved to receive and file the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. Support.
it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? With no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much for all of you for being here, and we'll see you again next year. All right?
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda tonight, which is a public hearing, and this is to consider the request by Universal Tool Equipment and Controls Incorporated to amend the final cost of the real property investment made pursuant to Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate number 2017-134 at 42409 Van Dyke. We have a presentation from our Senior Economic Development Advisor, Luke Bonner. Mr. Bonner.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Good evening, Mr. Vanderpool, members of council. Congratulations on the audit. It's fantastic. Before you tonight is an amendment to a previously approved Industrial Facilities Exemption Certificate by Universal Tool Equipment Controls, or UTEC. On September 5th, 2017, City Council approved a 10-year IFEC for a $5.7 million investment for a 108,000 square foot manufacturing facility at 42409 Van Dyke, which I think you'll agree has been a beautiful addition to the community. Under State Tax Commission Rule 54-1, if the total project cost exceeds 10% of the original tax abatement application, then the applicant has an opportunity to request an amendment to their tax abatement application to include that additional investment. So this evening, UTEC is seeking an amendment to their application resulting from an increase of real property investment of about $2.5 million for a total project cost of $7,117,457. Honestly, due to the growth of business, which has been fantastic. And Bill Bartolotta from UTEC will come up here in just 1 second to talk about where they started from when they went to this facility and now where they are today, resulting in this request. As a result, there is no increase in the term, so the term stays the same at 10 years. But there is an increase in additional $100,000 of real estate property taxes to the city of Sterling Heights, which means there's $100,000 of property taxes abated for a total of $321,000 of new property tax revenue as a result of this additional investment. So at this time, I'd like to welcome up Mr. Bartolotta to talk about UTEC's business over the last 2 years since the last time we saw them, and the need for tonight's request.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bonner. Mr. Bartolotta.
Yeah, good evening. Bill Bartolotta, Vice President at UTEC. Yeah, I just want to thank the city again for working with us on this project. This was a fast-track project that we had done. It was related to a large program that we had received an order for. That we had very strict timing to have the building complete, worked with the city, and we were able to get that all completed. The building has supported the growth of our business tremendously over the last 2 years. It's allowed us to add 30 full-time positions as well in less than 2 years of being in the building. And we see more growth in our future. And again, I want to thank the city for working with us on this program.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, anything else, Mr. Bonner? All right, at this time, I'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? Mr. Russo.
Like I've said before, I don't have a problem with them getting an additional tax abatement on the increase of what they've done. However, I'd like to see them hiring Sterling Heights residents to their good there, because it would help us to justify the cost abatement, and some of the residents in Sterling Heights that are putting up taxes for roads and all these different things, that theirs is going down, ours goes up. So I'd like to see that wealth distributed through jobs for people in Sterling Heights. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Russo. Anyone else on this item? If not, I'll close the public hearing, and council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
resolve to adopt the resolution approving the application by Universal Tool Equipment and Controls Incorporated to amend the final project cost for the real property investment at 42409 Van Dyke Avenue from $4,660,000 to $7,117,457 in connection with IFEC number 2017-134.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Schmidt?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Just to the petitioner, what's not to say you're investing much more into our community, and I thank you for sticking with us and being a good partner in our community. As Mr. Russo had said, hopefully some of those jobs can go to our Sterling Heights residents as well. But I wish you luck, and once again, I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Anyone else? Nobody else? Well, I again want to just echo those sentiments. Thank you for your investment in Sterling Heights, particularly in that area of the city. It's an area we're focused on right now and looking to improve. I'm excited about the future of that corridor, and this additional investment in there is a signal to other businesses and other residents that this is a vibrant city and a vibrant corridor right there. And I too hope that some Sterling Heights residents will find employment there. But we have a very low unemployment rate, so you might have to go outside of the city because most of our folks are already working. But that's just a sign of the good economy that we've got going. So thank you for your continued investment in Sterling Heights. And with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you again, and congrats. Good luck. Next item on our agenda is to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 53 of the City Code to add Article 8 entitled Illicit Discharge. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Sarowski.
resolved to adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 53 of the City Code to add Article 8 entitled Illicit Discharge.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion, Mrs. Sarowski?
No, actually, I have nothing I need to ask about this. Thank you.
Council, anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on any item on tonight's consent agenda? Mr. Shea.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and residents. The only thing I want to bring up regarding the consent agenda is J, to schedule a special meeting of the City Council for strategic planning session on Tuesday, January 28th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. This isn't for the council or the mayor or anyone. This is for the residents. If you want to find out what's happening in the community and what's going to be coming up and what they want to do, this is the meeting to attend. You always question why the council or what's going on or why it's happening. If you want to learn the long-term strategy of what happened, I haven't attended any for a long time, and things popped up, but I didn't attend them. I didn't find out what you were doing. It's my own fault for not going. So if you really want to find out what the plans are and what's going to happen, this is the meeting, January 28th, 6:30 p.m. in 2020. So you can learn about what their plans are, what they hope to do, what's financially available to what they're thinking about, so that's for the residents. So you've been, it's a little more than a month away, but make plans. Then, and if you decide not to go and something happens in the community, you can complain. Well, you may have missed out on some times of finding out what they're going to be doing in 2020, the plans and stuff. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shea. Anyone else on the consent agenda? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Kosky.
move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a consideration item, and this is to consider a First Amendment to the Planned Unit Development Agreement for the Reserves, 35-unit single-family residential development on the west side of Ryan Road, north of 19 Mile Road, PPCM-1192. We have a presentation from our city planner, Chris McLeod. Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Vanderpool. As you noted, Mr. Mayor, before you tonight is the First Amendment or proposed amendment to the Planned Unit Development Agreement for the Reserves Development up on Ryan Road. That is for 35 single-family residential units. Particularly two units, units 13 and 15 are the subject of this amendment. The applicant has come back to the Office of Planning and Administration requesting relief on two setbacks, one on each one of these units. Unit 13, which is up on the screen now, is seeking relief from the front yard setback of about just over a foot, which would push the building a little bit closer to the roadway and therefore would allow for the house to maintain its required rear yard setback to the north, which is Timber Ridge. We can see that on this particular map here. This kind of shows the context of the overall development. Again, this is lot 13, the highlighted lot there. Timber Ridge subdivision is the existing subdivision to the north. The applicant's seeking this amendment for this particular lot from the standpoint on, well, actually on both of these lots. They want to maintain the current architecture and the main model unit on all of these units, and they're having trouble fitting it on there with the current setback provisions that were originally approved as part of the planned unit development. So again, lot 13 or unit 13 is seeking about a 1 foot variance to the front yard setback. So again, no outward impact to any of the abutting residents to the north in that situation. Lot 15, which is right around the bend, is seeking about a 4 foot variance to the rear yard setback to allow for an additional room to extend off the back of the building itself, again, keeping that consistent model unit. But it would allow for this projection, again, not the entire building itself, just for a singular room about 14 feet wide to extend into that rear yard setback. Again, not necessarily impacting any of the exterior dwellings that are already currently constructed in the area, because what this lot abuts is the six planned single-family units that are not necessarily part of this section of the development, but are also part of the reserves development. Those are 6 individual homes that will be constructed at a later date, but again, not constructed at this point and as part of the overall reserves development. So again, that would be a small projection into the rear yard there. Again, the overall theme here is that the applicant is wishing to maintain the model home, which these are some of the renderings of the product that they're constructing out in the reserves development itself. These are single-family homes, high-end homes that are built basically for empty nesters, about 2,000 square feet or so with all the amenities. Here's another rendering, a little different version of their ranch-style home that's out there. So from that standpoint, the setbacks were originally locked in for the original PUD agreement. So therefore, to seek relief, they don't necessarily go to the Zoning Board of Appeals like a normal subdivision would. They have to come back before you since this is a planned unit development. But with that, they're also, we've also worked in there that they are able to seek the normal relief that a normal subdivision would receive. We call it our tolerance provision, which will allow for a 6-inch tolerance to the setbacks. Every house within the city receives that, so we've worked that into the PUD agreement as well, that they would also receive that going forward for any future issues. So with that being said, I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that council may have.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. McLeod. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to say anything about this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Yanez.
Either or, that's fine.
I'm sorry.
Resolve to approve the First Amendment to Planned Unit Development Agreement between the City of Sterling Heights and Ryan 19 Investments LLC, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement on behalf of the city.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion, Mr. Yanis?
No discussions. Good presentation.
Council, anyone else? No, none? Well, thank you, Mr. McLeod, and I see the petitioners here, and I appreciate you being here, but it doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of questions. It's pretty straightforward. It's talking about inches, maybe feet here. This is a really first-class development, and I know you guys have gone the extra mile to make sure that the retention pond and everything worked, and it worked in conjunction with the neighbors behind, and so this is a great product, and we're really excited about it. So I appreciate your work here in the community, and we'll see you soon, Mr. Lalama, and appreciate your commitment to our community and the work you're doing here for kids in the athletic departments here. So we'll learn more about that in the next meeting, I believe, so we're in about a month. But with no further discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck. Thanks. With that, we'll move on to the next item, which is to consider appointments to the City of Sterling Heights boards and commissions. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, there are two boards that require appointments tonight. The first is the Local Development Finance Authority. This one's been postponed a number of times, and I'm happy to say I have an appointment tonight. I spoke with Howard Sizemore, who is a resident that is looking to be more involved in our community. He has an engineering background. He's passionate about development, and so he would like to serve on the LDFA, and if somebody would make that motion, that would be for Howard Sizemore.
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Zarko.
On the recommendation of the mayor, resolved to appoint Howard Sizemore to the Local Development Finance Authority to a term ending June 30th, 2020, subject to the appointee meeting the qualifications set forth in Charter Sections 4.03 and taking the oath of office within 2 weeks. Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the Youth Advisory Board. Is there anyone that has any appointments to the Youth Advisory Board? Mrs. Riska, are there candidates? So when I was looking in the board and commission, or in our backup material, it appears that everyone on file has been appointed. Is that correct? Are there applications on file, or do we need to get new ones?
We do, all of the applications that we do have on file, they have been appointed. We do not have any outstanding ones. This is on the agenda because it was actually postponed.
Correct.
By council previously, so I think originally we intended to not put this on the agenda, or rather put this on the agenda only when we had new applicants.
Okay. I don't want to table it. I'd like to put it, maybe we can postpone it again for a month. Have we heard back from Dr. Livernoy? He was supposed to get us, do you know, Mrs. Schmidt?
Mayor Taylor, I actually had a conversation with Craig Miller, the principal at Sterling, and he does have some students that are interested. With the holidays and midterm exams coming up,
Sure.
if we could postpone it to sometime in January, I think that would probably be
Yeah.
a better idea. I will also touch base with him again and try and get some more students involved.
How about we do the second meeting in January? That would be the 21st, January 21st.
Okay.
So I'd entertain a motion to postpone this item to the January 21st, 2020 council meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes that portion of our agenda tonight. We'll move on to communications from citizens. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda? Mr. Russo.
Well, I'm here again for our beautiful Merrill Road project. Now that it's nice and smooth, it's just increased the volume of cars. It's increased the speed of cars. Our side streets that got no attention during this whole millage got no attention. They're cut-throughs. 98% of the cars that come down our streets are speeding, and they're just going through. They're cutting through. GPSs are routing semis from Mound Road straight to the abated industry at the end of our street that give nothing to our personal streets. The person plowing the snow for the city of Sterling Heights, it's got it really nice. Now he goes down the middle about 80 miles an hour and throws the snow about 30 feet. And I don't know if you've been down there, but on the one side, the houses are probably 30 feet from the road. The trees that are along the side there that have been there since I was a kid, and they were big then, had snow on them about this high from him. Two of my neighbors lost mailboxes. We lost the road sign and the stop sign on the corner of Poplar and Merrill because they're going too fast. Now the asphalt's slippery, so they lost control, took the sign down, it's gone, I don't know where it ended up going. It just goes on and on. I mean, this is ridiculous. You worry about the leaves. So the other day, we got 50-mile-an-hour winds after people in my neighborhood have cleaned leaves. You got the guy coming around taking pictures of people and putting a sticker. I have tenants that rent houses from me that don't live in the state. They work here. They go back and forth, and they rent houses from me, okay? So if I don't watch for the sticker in 24 hours, you guys are conveniently right on the spot. I'm very opposed at 24 hours. I've said this about the snow on the sidewalks. Now we're going to do the leaves. So he's around there, our beautiful Mr. Willis, Pat Willis. This is ridiculous. This guy is ridiculous. He goes and takes people that have been in this community, he picks on them. He's continually picked on me personally. He will go out of his way to find me. My one tenant pulled a 61 classic car, had one tire on the dirt and one on the driveway to pull his car out. He's seen it. Didn't have plates on it because it was in the garage. Gave me a violation, but he doesn't go that far. He goes farther. He goes to where he's gonna show me. There was a couple of plants that now have died, and there was some sprouting things in the flower bed. The whole lot is perfectly clean, and he's gonna write that down on there too.
All right.
So this is ridiculous, and I'm not putting up with it no more. If you can't control your employees,
Okay.
and you guys work for us, I'm not finished.
Point of order, Mr.
You
Mayor.
guys are work for us. Been here 63 years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Russo. Who'd like to go next?
Paid $30,000.
Enough, Mr. Russo, you made your point. Mr. Shea.
I made my point. I'm here every month now.
Come on up, Mr. Shea.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and residents again. I want to thank Councilwoman Schmidt yesterday. She posted on Facebook from the Police Officer Association of the State of Michigan a letter that they wrote. It was really kind of a sad letter. Last week in the state of Michigan, 7 police officers were shot in the line of duty. Unfortunately, one lost his life in the city of Detroit, and his funeral is going to be this week. And it's crazy what's happening out there, and it's unfortunate. Yesterday was the 48th anniversary of Officer Imus losing his life in the line of duty at a traffic stop at 1 o'clock in the morning. He was 32 years old when he lost his life, and he left a wife and a family. And I just hope this holiday season, not just in Sterling Heights, but across this nation, that we somehow try to curb the violence. It's just unbelievable. I personally don't want to see another park named after a firefighter or a police officer or anybody killed in the line of duty. If we can do one thing, Councilman Koski mentioned at the ribbon cutting of the Upton House. Yesterday was Cyber Monday. Today is Giving Tuesday. One thing we can do is something we can do every day is maybe a little bit of a random act of kindness. It's something that we can do for free, and we don't need to expect anything in return. But it's really tragic out there every day that we wake up and another officer's lost his life protecting us. And I definitely don't want to see that happen ever again, not here, not anywhere. So, and I want to say it was a beautiful ribbon cutting for the Upton House, and I want to thank you for the invite from the director, Tabby Turgeon, and all the vendors that supplied stuff for the Upton House. You guys done an amazing job. I want to thank Eckerts for everything they did. And the park looks beautiful from that cubicle up in the Upton House with the lights and stuff. And the ice rink opening, Parks and Rec Kyle Lanlos and the staff did an amazing job. They do an amazing job with the parks. And lastly, it's like you said, it's going to be a beautiful Christmas thing, and I just hope everyone has a safe and a nice Christmas. I said I wasn't going to be here. I won't be here at the last meeting, but I just know, thank you for extending that letter, and thank you, Councilman Koski. Maybe we could spread a little kindness. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shea. Anyone else under communications? Mr. Jefferson?
Charles Jefferson, Sterling Heights. Tomorrow at the LCA, there will be a protest against Kid Rock for what he said against Ms. Oprah Winfrey. If he had said that in Sterling Heights, it would have been okay. Mayor Taylor, did you see what happened to the students over at CC? I believe they've been released from school, and the police chief over in Novi was not having that. They threatened to kill some people, just like our planning commissioner here in Sterling Heights. The police chief's over in Sterling Heights, and Novi was like, take that to Sterling Heights. Same with over in Warren. Kid over in Warren said he wanted to kill some students. The police chief over in Warren not having it, not like over here in Sterling Heights. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. For the Sterling Heights Stevenson football team, you went as far as you can go. That's all I can say. I wish we could have followed them on SHTV. We should all reminisce about that. Let's take a moment. I don't know why you guys haven't come up with a plan to get that back, because that was a vital part of this community, and it should be back as a vital part of this community. Mr. Yanez, I have a question to ask you. It goes as far as the educational plan here in Sterling Heights. There's a number of cities here in Michigan have come up with a plan to have their graduating students from the high schools get their education paid. Are you coming up with some kind of plan to get our students some kind of economic help here to go to school here in Michigan, or even to a community college for all of them? You don't have to answer me tonight, because I know it's sort of a surprise, but please get back with me, because we should be looking out for our maybe start off with the lesser students, but then taking that to all the students here in Sterling Heights. And then Mike Radke, I asked you this question before, and you haven't come up with any answer. So I'm asking you tonight, what is the plan for the dog park? As far as the maintenance goes for that, as I said before, I would never take a dog to a dog park because dogs, they contract illnesses that we don't tend to see, and fixing it could be a great amount of money for those residents. Also, if a dog happens to get sick at the dog park, what is the plan? Is there going to be a plan for a person to call in and say, well, my dog got sick and I believe it's from the dog park? What is that plan going to be? Is there going to be any kind of quarantine note put up at the dog park saying the dog park is temporarily closed because there might be an illness here? It may or may not be an illness here, and we have to take care of it. What's the time frame for if a person does call in and say that a dog is sick? What is the time frame for closing down the dog park, just in case, so we can clean it up and get some kind of maintenance schedule going to that? These are all valid questions that should be answered before the dog park opens up. Everybody, continue, please have a safe and happy holiday season. As always, everyone should, I don't care if you work at the nose picking plant or not, you want to go home and come back. That's everybody. That's not police and the fire. That's everyone wants to leave their home and then come back. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Anyone else under communications from citizens? Mrs. Early?
Good evening, Jasmine Early, Sterling Heights. I'm here to congratulate again for winning the election, especially those who kept the election respectful. I really appreciate that. I also would like to thank the residents who supported me in the campaign for city council. We didn't make it, but it was again a wonderful experience. And as the result showed it, your support grew bigger, and I'm grateful for that. I came here, I haven't been here in a few meetings because we need a rest, and kind of what just happened with Mr. Russo is one of the reasons why sometimes it's not encouraging to come to meetings. I would like to ask the city council and the mayor, please sit with the staff that is in code enforcement. His case is not isolated. There are several residents that have complained about harassment, intimidation from code enforcement. Something is going on, and if you just want to dismiss it, then you are not doing your job. And I know some of you here sitting care about the people. You have been in the neighborhoods when you have been asked to go there. Please, he is serious about what he's saying because he's been affected. And several residents, they had letters, they had fees that are outrageous for something that they should not even be paying. Sit with them, sit with code enforcement, talk to them, ask what is going on. Find if there's something wrong going on, which it seems to be happening. I also would like to mention or encourage the residents and the city council. I thought about this idea a few years ago. It's Christmas season. We love this season. I'm pretty sure everybody likes the street lights. We want to bring something nice to the city, and I find out through 3 years doing it, doing a street light contest bring people together, and we want that. We want to know who is our neighbors. So if you could, the neighbors and in your own streets, encourage people to do it. Bring the Christmas spirit back to where it is, and it's about love. No matter who they are, you will get to know your neighbors, and they will appreciate it. And last but not the least, I have been meeting with residents, and one thing that comes is we have residents that can't afford Christmas gifts. And it's not about the gifts, saying it's about their needs. in your own neighborhood, find out who is in need. They are parents living in our house, in our city, in our own neighborhoods that don't have money to get something to their kids. I grew up poor. I know what it's not to have. If we can do something for them, I know you can do it. The neighbors at home can do it. Find those neighbors that don't have something and bring them a smile. I call it they give a smile to a kid. But more than that, you are giving a smile to the family. And in the long run is to make our community better. And that is all. And I don't see you. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Early. Anyone else under communications from citizens? If not, I'll close that portion and go on to reports from city administration. Anything, Mr. Vanderpool?
Mayor, just quickly, I'd like to follow up on the inquiry regarding the dog park. The dog park will officially open next year in the spring. Over the winter months, we'll be advertising all the rules and regulations of the dog park. There are thousands of these across the country, and certainly we're well aware of the best practices with respect to operating a dog park. And so all of this has been under review for the past couple of years, and we'll be pushing out all that information to the community and all of the residents of the city that currently have dog registration. So look for more information to come on that. And let me just comment too that our code enforcement efforts, which are mostly proactive, but in many cases our code enforcement efforts are due to complaints that we may get from residents across the city. But thankfully, because of our very, I would say, proactive and cutting-edge code enforcement program in the city, and also our SHINE program, Sterling Heights property values continue to increase. In fact, they've gone up 40% over the years, and this is due in large part to good code enforcement across the city. The vast majority of residents appreciate this program. We know that because of our statistically valid surveying that we do across the community every few years, and code enforcement always comes up as a number one of the top initiatives for the city that we need to continue to focus on. So we'll continue to do that. If Mrs. Early or Mr. Russo have any specific information about any detailed code enforcement cases where perhaps the code enforcement officer has been less than pleasant, please give me that information. You know, we will follow up on any of that information. I'm happy to give you my cell phone, Ms. Early. You can call me. Mr. Russo already has it. He calls me regularly, so I welcome you to call me with any details, and we'll happily follow up. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Mr. Koszybski, anything tonight?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Council, any reports or new business?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Yanez.
So I want to follow up on the code enforcement issue, and through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, what sort of training or preparation do our code enforcement officers get before they go out in the street? What are they looking for, and how are they told to approach citizens and the issues that they're looking for?
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Yanez, thank you. I appreciate the question. First of all, employees go through customer service training regularly. Customer service is very high on our list. There's really nothing more important than customer service. As the council knows, when you're dealing with infractions, whether it be in the police department or from code enforcement, if you're the recipient of one of those code enforcement warnings in almost all cases, you're normally not very pleased to be the individual getting that information. It just normally isn't a pleasant experience. Likewise, it's not a pleasant experience getting a speeding ticket, and most people who get those are not happy about it and may not like the approach of the individual involved in issuing a citation. And sometimes there's just no real good way to deliver the news that what you're doing is against a city ordinance and it needs to be corrected. In the case of code enforcement, we always give a warning. There's at least a 7-day warning when it's property maintenance issues with respect to painting, with respect to shrubbery trimming, and the like. If it's something like a grass violation, that's where the 24-hour notice comes in, and that's only after the grass is 6 inches or longer. In most cases, it's well beyond 6 inches when you get a 24-hour notice. And with sidewalk clearing, the same thing for obvious reasons. We can't let a situation like that go for 7 days or more. But for the large majority of cases, there's at least a 7-day warning notice. And then if it is a case of, let's say, painting, we'll often provide at least 30 to 90 days extension. Or if it's in the winter, obviously, we give an extension to spring, summer. So our primary objective is compliance. We want to work with residents to make sure that they're able to come in compliance. So our objective is not fining an individual, it's working with them to get compliance. So we do provide customer service training. We do not get a lot of complaints with respect to customer service. Now and then we do. Typically comes from a handful of individuals. In most cases, they may be habitual offenders. Most of our code enforcement officers have a great deal of training and interacting with the public. In most cases, some of our code enforcement officers are retired police officers who are very well versed in dealing with individuals in difficult situations. So that's not to say we can't improve in this area, and we're always about continuous improvement. So again, if there's any specific incidents with details, I welcome individuals to contact me, and rest assured we'll follow up on those specific cases.
Mr. Mayor, can I follow up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. I appreciate that. But I think what we're hearing tonight from the citizens are really valid, because I hear I get complaints all the time, and I realize out of a city this size, a handful, it doesn't seem like a whole lot. But I actually have we have a constituent who was very concerned because he's had to deal with code enforcement before, and he was concerned about the snow plowing because the snow plowing pushed leaves into the street, which is not, we're not supposed to have that. And he was very concerned that code enforcement would come by and write a notice, because now there are leaves in the street in front of his house, and because of his previously bad experience with code enforcement, now he is actually literally afraid what might happen to him. That's number one. And number two, I received a photograph of a code violation from a gentleman who got written up for weeds, and what they are is they're stalks from perennial flowers literally in his flower bed, weren't even in the grass. And he got written up, and he was forced to cut down his stalks. So I really appreciate the code enforcement officers going through the city, keeping the city clean, especially people who continuously violate the codes. But, the average citizen out there, even with the 24-hour notice, the code enforcement officers, police officers, anybody who works for the city that has the customer service training really needs to be working with citizens. And, they need to know the difference between what a weed is and what a stalk from a flower is, and certainly what a flower bed looks like. And people shouldn't be getting written up for this. So, even if it's a handful of stories, it's important to that individual who is being affected by this. So I think this is something that we really need to take a look at, making sure that our code enforcement officers are being customer friendly, providing great customer service, and helping people instead of just putting a notice on their door and potentially writing them a ticket. So people in this town pay enough taxes, they don't need to be added on simply because their flower bed wasn't cleaned up. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ian. Is anyone else?
Mayor Taylor.
Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski.
Thank you. So not to beat the dead horse, but I have to agree with my colleague, Mr. Yenes, and Mr. Russo's point. I have had a neighbor who has a mentally challenged daughter, very scared of the lawnmower, so she only mows her grass once a week. When she can get the daughter sent over to her neighbor's house, or her ex-husband's house. She was written up, and I was there. I saw the grass, and it wasn't 6 inches, so I understand that this is an not maybe an isolated incident. I've been watching her yard every year now, or every week now, to make sure, and now it's snowing, so I don't see it, but to make sure that it doesn't look, and she doesn't have any problems with it. So my question is, when there's an officer, an ordinance officer, that seems to have, that a resident is complaining about, what is our process? If I have a nurse that's complained about by a patient, I remove the nurse and put on a new nurse. Let's switch them out and let's find a different perspective. Doesn't mean that the ordinance officer or my nurse was doing anything incorrectly, but sometimes it's always a better practice to just, let's find fresh blood or fresh perspective. So through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, do we have something to do that we can do so that the same ordinance officer isn't always seeing that same property and possibly giving the perception of picking on someone?
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, first, we try to keep code enforcement officers in designated areas so they get to learn the areas very well and they get to learn the properties. Sometimes there's some rotation, especially when there's turnover. Again, I would emphasize if in the case of your neighbor, if you saw that the grass was not 6 inches, certainly let us know, and we'll make sure that it's not mowed. We'll make sure that we have a second inspection. We'll get out there with, as you know, if you call, we'll respond within a matter of certainly a couple of hours, if not sooner, when we have those situations. But when we have a complaint from a resident or a business regarding a code enforcement officer, we thoroughly investigate that. The director works directly with the code enforcement officer to see exactly what went wrong and to see how we could have handled it better. And that goes on as needed. I would say, we deal with thousands of code enforcement inspections every year that are applicable really to a small percentage of properties across the city. And we get very few complaints. We get some, but I'd say it's very infrequent. That's not to say, though, that, we can't improve in some areas, and we certainly will look forward to looking at the situations that you and Councilman Deanna has brought up. I'll certainly get the details from you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then to follow up, since this is our one
You can
example.
speak as long as you want.
Yep, I'm just going to, so with that,
Not as long as you want, but.
well, that's probably wise. But, and then to go forward, because that was just, this is our wrap up of the night. So I wanted to say that it was wonderful to be at the Upton House tonight. It is beautiful. And I must confess, Mr. Shea, don't faint. I have never been in the building of the Upton House before. I've lived here for 30 years and never been in that building. I was so impressed. I'm an antique collector, so that's just my beautiful wheelhouse over there. But it has turned into a very nice showplace for our city. So I wanted to congratulate the Historical Commission, Tammy Turgeon, who is our liaison to the Historical Commission, on such a beautiful project. So thank you. It's wonderful. All the residents, it will be open to the public in Sterling, at Sterling Christmas. So please get out and see it. It's gorgeous, especially if you like anything Victorian. And then just on a final note, it is Christmas time, and as Ms. Early said, it is important to get out, to reach out to our residents, especially those people who do not have the benefit of being able to give gifts that they would like. So as a mother of a Marine, I'm recommending Toys for Tots. That has been around since 1947. I did my little research. That particular group has been collecting toys throughout the United States, and we have two large collection areas in Sterling Heights. One is at Great Lakes Hobby and Toys. It's at 19 Mile and Van Dyke, just a little bit north of 19 Mile. And then the other one is Big Toys at 14 and Mound. Now, of course, there are other smaller groups that do collect toys for tots, but those are the two big ones that are in our city. So please, if you could give even a small toy, it doesn't have to be wrapped. It can be, heaven forbid, even a Matchbox car if you can, because those things are just, every little toy adds up. So I would like to encourage the residents to do that. And we hope to see you at Sterling Christmas. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sarowski. Anyone else, council? Mrs. Zarko?
Mayor Taylor, I have a couple of things tonight. One is I got a call today from a resident who routinely goes to the recycling center on 15 Mile near Baumgartner. And he explained to me that there are 2 bins there that are specific for plastic bags. Well, he was concerned because when he was there, the 2 bins that were filled with plastic bags were actually dumped in a dumpster. And although we know that they aren't recycled the same way that some of the other products there are taken care of, they all do have the recycling label on them. So I was wondering if we could look into that and find out actually how they should be handled. I know myself, I take mine to a soup kitchen because there's the clients at the soup kitchen will want to take a meal home with them, and they're always, or to wherever they're, if they're homeless, they're on the streets, but they're always looking for another meal, a bag to put their food in. So I know those are, they get reused at this soup kitchen. So I know that's one way to do it. I know there's other organizations that actually collect them and then use them to make mats for the homeless shelters or the warming centers, so that people aren't sleeping on a floor, that they're actually sleeping in with something in a little insulation. So there are other purposes for them, but I'd really like to look into the fact that I didn't see it, but he did see them dumped in a dumpster. So what was the point of having the 2 containers there to collect them if that was what's going to happen to them? That's one thing. And then Christina Taylor, the wife of our mayor, went and organized a group of people to go and wrap gifts for Friends of Foster Kids on Van Dyke and 17, and I was there yesterday. First of all, it's overwhelming when you see the generosity from the people in the community and the different organizations that have donated toys and clothes to the Friends. So, but the other thing is there's a mountain of gifts that need to be wrapped. So you can get a group together. It's usually a 2-person team that work on a bag. If you can find somebody to go down, that will work with you, you can look on their website for the available times. Usually takes a 2-person team about 2 hours in order to wrap one of the bags that will go to one child. So they certainly could use your help. It's right in the community. And if you go to Burlington, Coat Factory, it's in that shopping center. And there, if you're hesitant about what happens there, they will take you on a tour so you'll be, happy with what you see. And like I said, the generosity it's overwhelming. And it's Judge Toya and his wife that have started this, I don't know how many years ago, but it all started with his daughter, as a social worker, and it was with her clients that they decided to start this. And it's blossomed from 40 kids to over 2,000 kids. So it certainly is a worthwhile organization. So if you have time to go and wrap gifts, they need your help. And lastly is, I'm hoping that soon we're going to start talking about the census and the importance of the census next year, because we want everybody to be counted. It helps the city, but I know that we have at-risk areas. I know some people are afraid to answer questions about the census as to where they live, how many people live in their house. And hopefully that when we have these workshops, that people will be more comfortable with, coming out and answering questions. And I know that this time we're going to be able to do it online, and I'm hoping that when we have these workshops that we might be able to have the internet facilities available so that when people come to the workshop, they can actually be counted there. If they're fearful about doing this on their own computer, we could have our computers there and do it for them. So that's it, but I really think we should start talking about the census.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Zarko. I agree. Anyone else?
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Schmidt.
Thank you. Just briefly, first of all, I want to once again remind everyone about Sterling Christmas on Saturday. If you bring canned goods, it's much appreciated. My kids were waiting for the 1st of December so that they could check out the skating rink, and because I gave them the wrong time, they showed up late, and it had been opened already, but they had a blast. They said it was packed the first day that it was opened. They just got a few minutes in before my daughter had to go back up to school, but what a fantastic thing we have in our community. That, you know, we enjoy Dodge Park year-round now, and it's just, it says a lot about our community tonight. It was very busy out there tonight. So every day of the week, there's something to do in our community and have fun, and it's free for our residents. So I just invite everyone to come out and enjoy all of our festivities. I have nothing further.
Mr. Mayor?
Mrs. Koski.
Thank you. In regard to the recycling center, as Councilwoman Zarko mentioned, I got a call recently about the center on Clinton River Road being overflowing. And with Christmas coming up, I'm wondering if maybe we could request an extra bin for the cardboards and the papers, because I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of Christmas presents, and we're going to have a lot of cardboard, which is going to be brought to that center. And with 18 Mile Road closed, Clinton River is going to be extremely busy. I received a call requesting a direct number for animal control in the event that there are animals that have been hit and are deceased on the road. What does a resident do? Is there a direct telephone number to call, and do we still rotate those numbers on Channel 5 and Channel 10? And also in regard to the Upton House, it is absolutely gorgeous. I was there before, and now seeing it afterwards, it is really a proud possession of Sterling Heights. Will we be advertising the times that the house will be open for tours, and do they have to make appointments to do so? And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Koski. Mr. Radke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few brief questions. Recently, I was walking through a new subdivision in Sterling Heights, Jode Point, which is on Maple Lane between 14 and 15 Mile. When I went in there, I was so surprised because there is almost not a tree in the entire subdivision that was built on the street. There are trees at the back side of the houses, but there's almost nothing in the front yards. So I was just curious, through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, do we have an inspector or anyone who goes out and makes sure our tree ordinance is being followed by developers when they agree to develop in Sterling Heights?
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Radke, yes, we do. We inspect all of the developments as they're being built out, and once they're completed, our tree preservation ordinance requires that 37% of the tree species that are allowed, and in other words, not the scrap trees, be preserved, or that the developer pay into a fund. So that has to, that closeout, so to speak, has to happen with every development. I will report back to you on the 37% threshold with this particular development, and what percentage, if any, went into the tree preservation. So in other words, it could be that the 37% were planted in an area that's considered open space that may not appear to be directly connected with the development. But I'll report back to you on that. And I also know that there's some interest in tweaking or enhancing the tree preservation ordinance. Certainly that's going to be a topic of discussion at our strategic planning coming up in January.
Beat me to it. What I was going to say was that hopefully we might strengthen our tree ordinance and keep more trees either on the property or require them to be put both on the street and on the lawns, because we have a lot of new construction in the city. I know we have a new subdivision at 15 Mile and 15 Mile and Maple Lane, right next to CPC, and they've cut down quite a few trees there. And I know residents have brought that up to my attention. So we have to make sure that they're preserving that. To go further, I wanted to comment on what Mr. Yanez said and Mr. Russo said. You know, I fully support our code enforcement efforts in Sterling Heights. It's the number one thing that is brought up to me when I went and knocked on 3,000 doors this last election. People are concerned about their property values and want to make sure that everyone is following the same rules.
And if someone is being mistreated, we have to make sure that we handle that situation. But I think that overall, our code inspectors are doing an awesome job, because we have over, 43,000 properties in Sterling Heights, and we have very few complaints. We even have very few corrections that need to be made. So I want to say very few people seem to bring in a lot of complaints. And that's what we have to focus on. But I don't want our inspectors to start thinking that we're going to look over their shoulder when they're doing an awesome job in our neighborhoods. And I think that it shows through our increased property values and the fact that people are moving into Sterling Heights. They like that we have a clean, safe community, and we got to keep it that way. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Radke, and thank you, council, for many comments tonight and the residents for bringing up some issues. I would agree with that, I've joked that the number one complaint I get is that you don't do enough code enforcement, and the number two complaint I get is that you do too much code enforcement. And so the people who have code enforcement officers there enforcing against them, as Mr. Vanderpool said, it's not necessarily a pleasant experience, and there's oftentimes disagreement with whether there is a violation or not. So I think that our code enforcement officers at large do a phenomenal job at keeping the city looking as good as it is. And so if there are tweaks that need to be made, we will make those. I do get them frequently, and like I said, those complaints come in, that people are upset that they're getting code enforcement officers coming out and enforcing against their property. But usually when you sit down and we take the time and go over it and show what the code says and what the expectations are, and treat these cases individually, the residents are happy for that experience, understand what the expectations are, and there's a good relationship going forward. I mean, Mr. Russo, I don't know what to say. You come up here and you basically say, I don't care what your rules are. I'm going to say whatever the heck I want to say. And you're doing it right now. You're doing it right now. So I'm sorry, but I have a hard time. See, you're doing it right now.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
You're doing it right now. You're doing it right now. So I have a hard time believing. Okay, very good. Mr. Russo, you're out of order. I didn't interrupt you when you were talking, did I? You are out of order, Mr. Russo. You had your opportunity to talk. All right,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mercer, Officer Mercer, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You can't interrupt from the audience. So you can go. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to go. You can't interrupt the meeting. You're going to have to go, Mr. Russo. I'll leave it at that. But in any event, what I do I'd like to end as our police chief is in the audience tonight. I had a number of people come up to me and tell me how proud they are of our Sterling Heights Police Department because of the video that they saw on Channel 4, and maybe that they saw through the Sterling Heights Police Department's Facebook page. We have a resident named Zeke, who I think just turned, was he 4 or 5 years old? 5 years old. And the police department, if you haven't seen the video, you can find it on the city's Facebook page. You can find it on Channel 4's website. Just a really phenomenal, heartwarming story that makes me proud to be part of the community, really, and part of this city, where the police department went above and beyond to show up to this 5-year-old's birthday party. He's somebody who comes out to a lot of our city events. He wears police officer's uniform, and really is just a big supporter of the city and its police department. And to see what the police department did, took up a collection and said, hey, we want to get something nice for Zeke. And everybody chipped in, it looked like, and you were able to get him something that I always wanted when I was a kid, one of those power, what are your wheels, whatever it is. That was awesome. He got a uniform, he got a badge, he got a bunch of police cars. And if you saw it, there was a bunch, on all the Facebook pages, they were like, what's going on such and such street? There's cops everywhere. Is something wrong? Well, no, it was a really, really awesome thing. And I'm proud of you guys. You did a great job. Chief, to you and your entire team. That is really the Christmas spirit that we heard brought up tonight. And great job, great work, and keep it up. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported. No discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, meeting adjourned.